So, all right. So here we go. Scotty, where do you want to start here? AFC South.
Let's give H-Town a little more love. Let's start with his Texans.
Houston Texans. All right, take it away. And what do you like about the Texans this year? Now, Texans, let's see what we got at quarterback situation, right? So, I think you had some flashes last season, but what do we got? What do you think? We did our quarterback ranks a little bit ago. If you missed those, go check those out and make sure that you catch up on where we think some of these quarterbacks are coming into the season. But you can catch that on YouTube mainly. Go catch that on YouTube. But what do you got for the Houston Texans, Scotty?
Yeah. Real quick, Chris, H-Town Finest did say he's known Kyle King since high school. So
boom.
We know Kyle King. Chris hung out with him in Vegas for the draft and stuff. So Kyle King seems like a good dude. I haven't hung out with him personally, but you have, Chris. So
I have. He's fantastic, dude. Love Kyle King. He's a great friend of the show. We always give shout outs to Kyle. Make sure you guys, by the way, go give Kyle a shout if you haven't already. So.
All right. Now's where the love might stop, H-Town. And you know this. I mean, the Texans, listen. The Texans are years away again from being competitive, right? I mean, you're right when you describe Davis Mills. He showed flashes. The last 5 games of the season last year, they won a couple of them. He played well, especially like in the game. You remember how I went off on the Chargers for losing to the Texans? I don't know if you remember that, Chris, but I went off on a stream. I think that might be like a TikTok actually on our TikTok. Me going off on the Chargers to losing when the Texans had like 20 guys out with COVID and it was ridiculous. Listen, the Texans are in rebuild mode. That's just the reality of where they're at. Obviously, you had the whole Deshaun Watson situation. You trade him, you get some draft capital. To start to rebuild with. You have a year here to kind of see what Davis Mills is exactly. You give him a whole year because he kind of only got parts of last year with Tyrod Taylor getting some time as well. This team needs a lot of work. They did re-sign Brandon Cooks, who obviously was really nice for him. I say they're rebuilding. Let's keep in mind, 2 years ago with Deshaun Watson, they won 4 games, Chris. Last year without Deshaun Watson, they won 4 games. So let that marinate for whatever it's worth. They re-signed Brandon Cooks. They do add Jerry Hughes on the defensive side of the ball, but not a ton to speak of as far as additions and stuff. This is a team kind of in transition, trying to figure out what they are and building for the future. So I don't think we have to talk about them much. Obviously, I don't think they're a team that's going to be in any sort of contention this year, Chris. And I expect them, frankly, to finish, third or fourth, depending on what Jacksonville decides to do. But I predict them to finish at the bottom of the AFC South this year.
Yeah, Jacksonville's an interesting one. We'll talk about them here in a second. H-Town, I believe Houston fans are ready for a new owner. That could be in the mix. But, Davis Mills is the biggest thing for me. Jacksonville, when it comes to the bottom, Jacksonville and Houston are the bottom 2 teams in this. So, with that being said, I think that anytime you get rid of Urban Meyer in Jacksonville, I feel like they're going to be a lot better of a team. And I think that Houston Texans, I think they'll be a competitive team. I think, the biggest impact I think will be from second year Davis Mills. And if he can make that step, he's a bright spot towards the end. I just think lack of top tier talent is a big, they just need that. And they don't have that. They have some nice pieces there, but when it comes to comparison for the rest of the division, it's a little bit on the lesser tier when it comes to across the board, from the skill positions to everything else. It's like they're just playing catch up. So yeah, don't want to spend a ton of time here, but on the talent though, Chris, I will say real quick that I actually love the Derek Stingley pick, who they took at the top of the draft this past year. On paper, Derek Stingley as a freshman at LSU was maybe the best corner I've ever seen as a true freshman in college football. And then he had some injury issues. But if he's healthy and good to go, that dude,
can easily become a top 5 corner in this league, no questions asked. So I love the pick and the upside there. So if I'm looking to one guy on each side of the football for the Texans this year on who to watch, I'm looking at Derek Stingley on the defensive side, and I'm obviously Davis Mills on the offensive side. See what he can do, or whether you need to address the quarterback position moving forward. I think unless Davis Mills does something miraculous, they probably will look to upgrade that in the draft next year. So quite frankly, them not having a great season, in my opinion, might be helpful to them moving forward and trying to get because the draft next year has some dudes at the quarterback position. It's a much better QB draft than this year.
Totally. Yeah. And I think, with this, I forgot to talk about the lines. Let's go into the lines real quick. I always forget to go just do an overarching kind of where things are at when it comes to just what Vegas has currently. So FanDuel Sportsbook has, as the AFC South Division winner, Indianapolis Colts are the favorites to take the division, -115. Tennessee is +160. They're second as favorites to win the division. Jags come in at +750. And then you got Houston Texans at +2,500. So they are distant fourth on this list. And pretty much that's where we have them slotted here. So we are in agreement here that there's a lot of talent on these other teams. I mean, we'll dive into those here in a second. So, hey, if you guys like value, I mean, Tennessee and Jacksonville have some nice little odds there. I mean, take a flyer on them. But Colts are the favorites to win the division. H-Town, can't wait to see what Matt Ryan does for the Colts. I think it'll be a good game when they play the Titans. Absolutely. I think that'll be... I want to see what the Colts really have. We're going to dive into... Should we dive into the Colts now, or do you want to hit Jacksonville or Tennessee?
We can go at whatever order you... Who do you want to talk about, Chris? I picked the Texans. You pick next.
Let's talk about the favorites, I guess. Let's talk about the favorites here, and let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts. So the Indianapolis Colts obviously adding Matt Ryan to an already nice setup when they have their offensive line all taken care of there. I mean, it's a nice little spot for them to, keep him upright and make sure that he has time to throw the ball. He's got nice weapons out there, and Indianapolis Colts have a nice little defense. They have a great running game. So there's a lot to love when you're stepping in from an Atlanta Falcons team that had a lot of issues across the board when it came to some of those pieces that he used to play with, and then they kind of disappeared on him due to cap reasons and various issues with how the Falcons have kind of developed talent over the last few years. But, a lot of people jetting out of there, and Matt Ryan was this was the perfect time for him to get out and get into the Indianapolis Colts organization. Their over-under, I believe, projection is 9.5 this season. Scotty, do you think they get there?
I do. I'm pretty high on the Colts. I know they had an epic collapse last year at the end of the season, and you can blame that. Obviously, a lot of the blame externally in the media goes on Carson Wentz, and I agree with that pretty to a large extent. But there were other guys that didn't show up. When I look at the Colts, you add Matt Ryan, and I'm not saying this lightly. Matt Ryan potentially has gone from the worst offensive line in the league with the Falcons to potentially the best offensive line in the league with the Colts. We'll see. The Colts at left tackle, I'm a little nervous about how they handled that. They had Eric Fisher last year, the Chief. Didn't bring him back, so there's some question marks there, but Quentin Nelson's likely the best guard in the league. You have a lot of good players on that offensive line. You have Jonathan Taylor in the run game, obviously led the league in rushing last year, as a monster in the run game. I do worry about... that you got Pittman on the outside, but beyond that, it's a little light. They drafted, who's that guy from Cincinnati they drafted in the second round this year? I'm drawing a blank on his name. To add to that wide receiver core. So the weapons are a little lacking for me, but I like the coach. I like the GM. He actually is a Chiefs guy, so maybe I'm biased in that. You add Ngakoue and Stephon Gilmore on defense to this defense that was already
big pickups.
Pretty damn good last year. I don't disagree with them being the front runner, and 9.5. That might be one of my favorite bets of the year is taking the over on the Colts. I think the Wentz effect allows them to get some wins. I've heard people locally on the radio here in Denver predict them to get 13, 14 wins, and I'm like, I'm not on that train.
Not that.
I'm not there, but I don't know. I mean, I think like 9 seems like their absolute floor. So at 9.5, I could see them winning 10, 11, best case scenario 12 games, and I like their over there, and I like them to win this division.
Yeah, no, I think all those pieces, they got better. By the way, they have Phillip Lindsay on their third string running back, a boy out here he was in Houston. Denver was where he was most known, but they have a nice Michael Pittman Jr. back in or on the wide receiver core. Nice piece there. There could be some fantasy value in some of these wide receivers too. I could see him having a nice year, but yeah, overall, I think this team is slated to win a lot of games this year. Money Magic, welcome in. What's up, Money Magic? Tighten up. They picked the Colts to win the division every year, and they haven't won since 2014. It's funny AF. It reminds me a lot of what we hear about the Chargers for us, Scotty.
Chargers in the AFC West for us. Yep. Yeah. And here we are both picking the Colts.
And so here we are.
Maybe we're suckers.
We're drinking
Chris.
the Kool-Aid, man.
We're drinking the Kool-Aid too, Money Magic. We have fallen for it.
It's a trap every year.
It's a trap.
Y'all doing a fantasy football league, says Clept. Welcome in, Clept. By the way, Clept, we're going with a different store eventually. We still have the store in place. I'm going to get you your hat. But y'all doing a fantasy football league. We are doing one, and we are going to make all of those fantasy football league, the Pick'em League, the Survivor League, those are all going to be announced very, very soon. So make sure you guys are joining us and following all our social platforms and Discord. They will all be in there. Is Taylor the first pick for you in fantasy football, says Broncos? I think it's strong to pick that. I mean, we're going to dive into fantasy football analysis very, very soon.
Once we're done with this division preview, probably, right, Chris?
Yes. And I've thought about my strategy, typically taking running backs first because they're not that many of them. I have maybe some surprising changes in how I draft moving forward. So that's just maybe kind of a cliffhanger for you when you're asking that Jonathan Taylor question there. So just throwing that out there. Clep, the store is still up. The store.
Are you hinting at Cooper Kupp 1 overall?
I mean, maybe.
All right.
No, I'm not. I don't know. No, the store is still in place, Clep. We're still at the store. If you want to join in, it's ! Store or stores in the so go check out our merchandise. But we're just trying to upgrade to a new store eventually. It's not happening yet, but if you want your ActionLab merch, make sure you go check us out in the store. I think it's there we go. There it is. There we go. There's their headquarters for all of our merch as of right now. They've been taking products off for us, so we got to make sure that gets fixed. Alec Pierce, wide receiver from University of Cincy, says Football Wife.
Football, I knew referencing the Cincy should take care of me. So thank you, Football Wife. Alec Pierce is who I'm talking about. The only highlight I've seen of Alec Pierce in training camp was actually Stephon Gilmore locking him down in coverage and breaking up a pass. So not that I've followed them that closely, but I worry about Alex Pierce if he's your number 2 as a rookie in this offense. That's why I'm concerned about the depth weapons that Matt Ryan has to throw to, but you have an elite offensive line, elite running back. And Pittman, to me, Pittman's like an upper echelon number 2. They don't even have a 1, in my opinion. Nothing against Pittman Jr., but I don't know if he's a 1. I wouldn't rank him as a top 30 wide receiver in the league. I really wouldn't.
Yeah.
And now in fantasy, he might be, but just ignoring fantasy, I wouldn't rank him as a top 30.
Next up, let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their over-under win total right now set over under 6.5 wins, and that's plus 115 money on that. So there's going to be a little bit of value if you think that the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have a decent team going into this season, the biggest addition is the addition by subtraction with Urban Meyer. In my opinion, there's a lot to get from being out from under a toxic coach that you just don't believe in and you just can't get behind. So Trevor Lawrence, hey, this is your time to shine. because they got Travis Etienne coming back off that injury, Scotty. That's a huge pickup. If he could be as good as everyone thought he was going to be coming out of college, that was just a devastating injury last season. And it was just like heartbreaking to see a guy of that caliber go down that early in his NFL career, especially before his first season. But you had you got the best receiver in the entire NFL, Christian Kirk.
I was worried that you weren't going to mention the single greatest signing in the history of the NFL this offseason, Chris, with Christian Kirk. I'm glad you mentioned him.
Christian Kirk getting paid all the big bucks because he is Mr. Big Time. He is their wide receiver 1, and let's just say he has he has to perform to make sure he makes that money back. Marvin Jones is on the other side of him there. Evan Ingram, nice little pickup at tight end, I think, for Trevor Lawrence to have him as a nice little safety blanket. But
he's not a safety blanket. He literally drops every pass.
He does drop a little bit. He does. He can be a nightmare when it comes to that. But I mean, there's a lot to like. I mean, the defense isn't that awful. I think that they have some nice little highlights where they can really have some nice defensive presences when it comes to their secondary. They have, Shaq Griffin ended up getting in on board with these guys as well. Scotty, what do you love about these Jacksonville Jaguars, and what might you not like so much?
Listen, it all comes down to me to Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence was the second coming, right? Like, he was the most hyped prospect at the QB position since Andrew Luck, since John Elway, whatever you want to say. Like, he had everything. Now, he got a free pass his rookie year. He didn't play that great, but he got a free pass, and he has Urban Meyer to thank for that. Urban Meyer took all the heat. Not saying he shouldn't. Urban Meyer was an absolute disaster and was a garbage head football coach. So moving on from him, now Trevor Lawrence, you have a coach coming in Peterson that's won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. He, at least somewhat has to know what he's doing, right, in order to win a Super Bowl. So there's a lot of pressure on him. You have weapon, like, first of all, they're running back with Robinson, who shockingly wasn't on the pup to start training camp. I still don't think he's healthy, and you got Travis Etienne, who Chris, I love Travis Etienne and his game-breaking ability. Once he makes it to the second level, he can take it to the house all day, every day. I think he's arguably, like, he reminds me a ton of Jamal Charles as a Chiefs fan. If he can make it to that second level, he gone, Chris. He gone. So, and then you have Christian Kirk on the offense. So along with Evan, I like to drop the ball. Ingram, talked about Marvin Jones. What's weird is they basically brought on Kirk and lost DJ Chark, and I'm like, that's kind of like outside of you're paying Kirk a lot more than Chark got, it's kind of just like a negligible move to me. But if ETN can provide stuff, they re-signed Cam Robinson, they added Brandon Scherf at guard, who's an elite guard, so they're shoring up that offensive line. There's no excuses this year for Lawrence. I'm not saying he has to ball out, but he's got to be good. He needs to be good, and I think he can be. This defense is still a work in progress. This defense is not going to be good.
They drafted Trayvon Walker and Devin Lloyd, so they're trying to fill in some gaps.
But Trayvon Walker, to me, they drafted a guy at 1 that's like a project. They drafted a project at number 1, which in basketball, fine, but in the NFL, I hated to pick, Chris. That's why I'm hating on it. But I don't think Trayvon Walker is going to do a ton in his rookie year. I really don't. I know the elite athletic profile that he provides.
Sure.
But he didn't do that at Georgia. So, and people say he wasn't asked to do that. Are the Georgia coaches that just won a national championship that dumb that they told a guy who's better than anyone else at doing something not to do it? No. So I think he's a work in progress. I don't think he has any pass rushing moves. It's going to be a little bit before Trayvon Walker I like people at the end of this year are going to call him a bust, and I'll be like, hold on, I didn't like the pick, but I'll wait to call him a bust because after this year, everyone's going to call him a bust.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much falling into the same category as like a middling roster with lacking superstar talent. Again, just a lot of what do we got kind of situations. But I mean, when it comes to some of the over under with that 6.5, they do have the 12th easiest schedule in terms of opponent win total projections, and the 7th easiest when looking at their opponent's combined win percentage from 2021. So, if you're making a bet on this one, I mean, they might be able to get to 7 wins. They might, but it's just, is there anything more not entertaining than betting a win total on the Jacksonville Jaguars?
There was someone at work who like 2 weeks ago was like, I love the over on Jacksonville this year. And I'm like, I maybe it's a mental thing, but I can't bet the over on Jacksonville. I just can't.
You can't have fun betting the over.
And then he came to me though today, Chris, and he's like, now I'm worried. Did you hear that they cut their they don't have a kicker. They cut their kicker in camp. And I'm like, that's the one thing they need Urban Meyer for. Urban Meyer knows how to lock kickers in. He will literally kick your ass if you're not a good kicker. And that's what they miss from Urban Meyer right now.
Yep.
Roger.
You're right on that. Always been a Ryan Tannehill fan. I'm an Aggie for life. He was a wide receiver before he made the transition to quarterback in college as H-Town. Yeah, absolutely. Tannehill...
Which is weird to picture now, because Ryan Tannehill now... If you saw him, you couldn't dream of him being a wide receiver at any point, which isn't a shot at him at all. He just looks like a quarterback.
I couldn't picture it, but yeah, it's. I want to go back and see some of the highlights of him as a receiver. Like maybe I'll go back and do that after this show. I know some diehard Aggies, H10. I think Trevor has to prove himself this year as a elite quarterback. Yeah. No, he has. Like we mentioned, no excuses. Like where they've tried to put some, what you have going into this season for sure. With the roster you put in place, it's not meant to fail. Like if you finish behind the Texans, then we're having some conversations about whether or not that's something that we need to take a look at moving forward. But it's too early to pull the plug on a guy like that. I mean, you got to see what you have. Placing a bet on Lawrence as the MVP this year, says Broncos.
Well, I mean, is that a long shot? Of course. But I don't hate it in the sense of, what did I just say? Their defense is going to be trash. So in order for them to win games, Lawrence is going to have to ball out. That offense is going to have to win the game for him. So if they do win a lot of games, it's going to be because of Trevor Lawrence, and people are going to be like, look at Jacksonville. I'm just saying.
So you're saying that Trevor Lawrence, from a fantasy perspective, has a nice little ceiling or upside as a late draft pick for your team to potentially have a nice season.
He's going to be throwing the ball a lot due to the fact that they're going to have to keep up because their defense doesn't have a lot of dudes.
Which is that's a big deal for fantasy football numbers, right? I mean, yeah. So there you go.
And he has some running potential, so he can do a little bit of both.
Klept. Scotty is like McFly from Back from the Future. LOL.
I get that. I've never got that from someone before, but now that you say it, it kind of makes sense.
Why does Bill Schmidt like the Jags? Says Cuban. I don't know.
Cuban. I can't talk. I cannot talk about that.
All right, let's shift to your Tennessee Titans. For all you Titans fans out there, can't wait till Bama and A&M game this year after the Aggies were able to secure that W last season. That big dub.
And obviously the press conference rivalry that occurred this offseason between Jimbo and Nick
it's going to be absolutely must-see TV.
Oh, absolutely.
Guys, hit that follow button if you have not already. We have one more team to cover here, and that's the Tennessee Titans. But if you're enjoying the content, make sure you are following the channel. It means a lot to us to have you as a part of our ActionLab Rap family. I'm assuming Scotty's friend is the GM, says Cuban.
I have a lot of friends, Cuban. At least 7.
He's got a handful.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's dive into the final team on the AFC South. And again, we're hitting these rapid fire because we have a lot to get to tonight. So, Tennessee Titans. Now, Tennessee Titans made a little bit of a splash going after Malik Willis. Now, looming in the background, had that little kind of like thing that popped up with Tannehill talking about how he's not going to mentor Willis, this and that. We talked about that on the show a while back. But, even with that, Tannehill has produced in the regular season. He did it last year. He can do it again. I mean, he's got Derrick Henry coming back. I mean, Derrick Henry missed a ton of time, obviously. He has Robert Woods, Trailon Burks. He's got a couple, decent receivers to get the ball out to as well. So, the biggest question I think is Derrick Henry and kind of what his role in all this is going to be because, there are only a handful, Scotty, of just pure number one workhorse running backs in the NFL. There's not that many of them. And is Derrick Henry going to be able to keep that workload going after injury season, come back and be able to get things rolling again? Obviously, you got to keep pace in this NFL. You got to make sure you're throwing the ball quite a bit. But, I mean, he can be a force if they can keep him rolling. Austin Hooper, tight end. He's going to be, being out there, trying to make things happen from that perspective.
You almost might as well have said he's going to exist. He's going on the field.
He'll be there.
I don't think that's not a shot at Austin Hooper. He's just kind of just a dude, right? He's just kind of a jag.
Yeah. He's not awful, but he's not great. He's like middle of the road. He's mid.
Jag.
Yeah.
So mid.
And
I'm trying to use the word mid more, Chris, and I should have used it there.
Clep, Titans are going to struggle throwing the ball this year, I feel like. And there could be a little bit of that. But, Scotty, what do you think about Tennessee Titans? Right now, I believe their over-under on their win total is 9.5. 9.5, and that's plus 115.
Which is interesting because that's what the Colts were. But real quick, remind me the division odds between the Colts and Titans because I know the Colts were the favorite. Can you pull that up real quick,
Colts
Chris?
Is minus 115 to win the division.
Okay. Yep.
Tennessee is plus 160.
So that's a pretty large discrepancy on two teams that have the same
win total.
Now, the odds are different in their win total as well. I get that. Listen, I'm probably about to be disrespectful as well, but does everyone forget that the Tennessee Titans were, in fact, the number 1 seed in the AFC last year? I think they do. I think this is, by and large, the most disrespected number 1 seed coming into the next year. Thank you for the follow. Kale?
What's
Kale
up,
13,
Kale 13? Welcome, man. Where are you from and who's your team? Like to get to know you a little bit.
So this is a team that was the number 1 team in the AFC head of the postseason. Lost a very close game, really, against the Bengals in that first playoff game they had where they threw a pick late that allowed the Bengals to kick a field goal to win. Otherwise, worst case scenario, they were really looking at overtime there. Could have gone either way. Obviously, a Bengals team that made it to the Super Bowl. So, and that was like Derrick Henry kind of coming back after missing the second half of the year. Obviously, you have the A.J. Brown trade. That's a huge, Chris, I'm in love with A.J. Brown. I've said it time and time again on this show. The last couple of years, I love A.J. Brown and what he brings to the table. Losing him is not. I mean, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Now, they did trade for Robert Woods. Coming off that injury, Woods, didn't have the year I thought he was going to have with the Rams last year. Like, Chris, you and I literally were in a fantasy league and loved the Rams wide receivers and took Woods over Cup.
Yep.
Like, we had it right. We just had the wrong guy for some reason. Anyway, we'll see if Woods is healthy, how he is there. They drafted Trailon Burks, wide receiver out of Arkansas, to add to that. Basically, Trailon Burks is kind of an A.J. Brown clone in a sense with his body type and speed and what he provides there. So but he's going to take time as a rookie. So we'll see. But otherwise, their roster's pretty much the same. They didn't add a lot of pieces, didn't lose a lot of huge pieces. So I think everyone's just kind of, I mean, they lost Julio Jones as well, but Julio was healthy once every 5 months. So everyone's hyping by the way, the Julio Jones signing, which we have happened this week when we were off the air, but Julio Jones is like hamstring is going to fall apart in week 5. So I don't know why we're worried about that. Yeah,
we were talking a little bit about Julio. Is he really Julio? I was on Rex's show earlier, and he would talk about Julio a little bit. Okay. Hey, Trevor Rice, welcome in. First time chatter. Welcome. Hope you're having a fantastic just time watching the show. Guys, give him a nice warm welcome. He says, after the interceptions in their playoff loss, the most pressure is on Tannehill. Backlash was receiving after that game had fans hoping Aaron Rodgers would go to Nashville. Now, Tannehill doesn't have A.J. Brown, so they'll need others realistically, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on Tannehill. And I think the biggest thing was, the scary part is even with the number 1 seed, it was hard for people to even pick them to come out of the AFC. There was other people right? Hey, Trevor, let's go.
Let's go. Thank you for that, Trevor. Shaq shimmy right there. Love to see Shaq in his birthday cap.
By the way, where are you from and who your team? We like to get to know you a little bit. We like to get all of you guys to on a regular first name, first team basis. G Girl, what's up? Hey, Reckoning, can we give G Girl a shout out? G Girl is a fantastic streamer. If you haven't met her or seen her stream already, she is fantastic. Give her some love. She absolutely crushes sports content. She's NBA, NFL. You won't regret jumping in her channel and checking out what she has to say about sports. So make sure you go do that when you can, when you have an opportunity. So,
absolutely. She kills it. Check out her stream if you guys have a chance. She's awesome. As we get into this, listen, Tannehill definitely has pressure. They obviously drafted Willis, and then Tannehill had a weird response to whether he had to mentor him. You can disagree or agree with what he had to say there, but why say it in the first place is my argument. But the pressure is limited. Like no one's expecting Tannehill to go out and just ball this year, right? He just needs to Tannehill needs to be a game manager. I know that word is just hated on in football, but literally that's what Tannehill needs to do. Be a game manager. Don't lose the game. Make some plays. I think we ranked him in our QB rankings. I mean, I know he was right around the middle of the pack. I don't remember exactly where he was, but he was right around 15, 16, 17, somewhere in that range. And that's kind of who he is. So if he can get and consistently play closer to 10, that team's going to be legit. And Vrabel's an amazing coach. Love Mike Vrabel and what he brings and how good of a job he's done as a rookie head coach in this league the last few years in Tennessee. He's legit.
He'll be one of the best coaches in the NFL very, very soon. I mean, he's up there in the top echelon of the coaches right now. I mean, realistically. All right, so I live in Trevor. I live in Western Kentucky. Radio station group I work for is the Titans affiliates. Nice. All right, I love it. Right. So we got nice representation talking Titans. So, hey, let us know what you guys are feeling out there, what you're hearing. Love to hear a lot of more of that perspective, especially, we have people popping in from all over the country. We love those feet on the ground and all the insights from various camps and various team fan bases. So, live in Eastern Iowa, says Kale. Vikings fan. We have a lot of nice things to say about the Vikings. I know Milwaukee may not, but we have some nice things to say about your boys. We'll get to that here in a little bit. Chairman of the board, you missed out that Scotty was saying some nice things about the Lions, so there you go.
Yeah, he's driving, but I thought I saw the chairman spotlight in the sky. You did. We did mention your name earlier, so we're getting into the Lions soon. Well, sort of on this stream at least. This stream might go 87 hours, Chris. Buckle up, everybody.
Buckle up. By the way, the countdown, 38 days, 17 hours, 43 minutes, and 32 seconds, according to Football Wife's kickoff countdown to the NFL season.
Is anyone else like me, real quick? Now that training camp's going, I'm like, oh man, it feels so real, and we're so close, Chris, and I'm so here for it.
Yep.
Like, training camp might be arguably the best time of year in football because everybody's happy. Every football fan, their team looks better than they ever had. Their team is healthier. Their team has these new players they're excited about. Every football fan in the NFL right now in training camp is happy. They're happy.
You're starting from the ground level.
Good news.
Everybody.
I live in Denver, and I for the last 6 years they've been trash. But I listen to their radio stations just hype the training camps, and I'm like, okay.
You're listening to the wrong radio station.
That's true. I listen to a different one now, but for a while I was. That's true, Chris.
But everyone is at 0-0. Even the Texans, even the Vikings, the Titans, everybody is 0-0, and everyone has high hopes for this season coming up. And this is, again, the best time. You always have highest hopes, even if your team is projected to be the last in the league. So, hey, it's a good time to be an NFL fan.